Thank you. Celebrity status already. I haven't even spoke yet. Good morning. Most of you don't know me, and how could you? I'm typically quiet and keep to myself much these days. I've never been much of a social butterfly, but I once fancied myself as someone who could fit in just about anywhere. And I stayed current with the issues, and while I had my own strong opinions, I could converse with just about anybody on a variety of topics. Now, chances are, unless you've read my book or you've talked to my wife, then probably all you know is the introvert that I've become. Today, that could be why Ben asked me to speak during this series. I was contemplating on what to talk about, and a variety of subjects came to mind. Was the war, homecoming, anger, rage, homicidal ideation, suicide, and who am I today? All important parts of my life in only 10 minutes to get it in. I have loved the Lord and my fellow man for as long as I can remember. In fact, when I went to war, I didn't have an enemy. Just people with misguided views who had the same right to die for their cause as I did. In a way, I respected them for that. I spent 16 straight months and drove over 30,000 miles through that war-trodden land. We would go north past Baghdad one day, then back the next to our home right outside Nasiriyah. Nasiriyah was where Jessica Lynch was taken captive just a few months before we arrived. It wasn't all bad. We were also close to the city of Ur, the birthplace of Abraham, the ziggurat, and Nebuchadnezzar's palace, where we had several opportunities to visit these historical biblical areas. I even had a dream with the writing on the wall just like Belteshazzar in Daniel 5:5. The amazing thing was that I was basically right next door to where it all happened. And I never heard about the biblical story until I told Helen about the dream. She told me about the book of Daniel, and we both stayed in amazement. It was a wild ride. After a number of close calls with small arms fire, improvised explosive devices, and car bombs, I was beginning to feel superhuman, like nothing could hurt me. In fact, I found the attacks exhilarating. Then, 13 months into deployment, I had one close call too many. I was providing security for a joint convoy containing both military and unarmed third country nationals through Baghdad. Third country nationals, or TCNs, were drivers from Iraq and other surrounding countries hired by our government to help the local economies. I had stopped roadside for a TCN, and when we slowed and pulled to the curb, pop, game over, or so I thought. An IED not 5 feet from my face. The main charge never ignited, just the blasting cap. My face was peppered with debris, and the cab of the truck filled with smoke, and I was angry. That's when I learned how to hate. Truly hate. I hated the people that perpetrated the IED. I hated the TCN that caused me to be put in that situation. And in that moment, hate turned to rage, and I wanted vengeance. I lost God, and I lost myself right then and there. I didn't stop believing. I just stopped believing that he could love me and the person that I'd become. I was eager to play this game called war. I was well aware that I could lose my life, and I was prepared for that. But how do you prepare for being a survivor? They don't tell you that the experience will unlock portions of your brain that are beyond cognition. These areas are aggressive and based on mere instinct and survival. You are a powerful tool for death and destruction, but then they bring you back home to this society where your newfound aggression is not acceptable. They throw you among the masses and tell you must merge back into a normal life. They don't know how to cage the animal that they have unleashed. When I came home, I found everything so trivial. The life I had come to know was about live and die, but that didn't fit into my home life. When I returned, the election was gearing up much like today. The politicians argue like children, and their lack of unity is giving the enemy reassurance that all they have to do is hold out and we will implode, grow war-weary, and go home no better than we started. I was so angry that the politicians could play with the lives of our soldiers in that manner. I swore to defend our country against all enemies, both foreign and domestic. And in my mind, we had a lot of domestic enemies. My mind would constantly ruminate about how, when, and where to do away with these people. I couldn't help it. It's what they made me. But it wasn't who I really was, and I grew exhausted, depressed, and suicidal. On the day I was going to do myself in, my attempts were foiled by a series of unusual interruptions. It was an unexpected visitor, then a phone call, then a near stranger that just needed a moment of my time. Not just once, but over and over again. But I had it planned so perfectly, so I made a new plan. And again, my plan came unraveled like a spring in a cheap child's toy. Disheartened by my best laid plans, somehow I found a glimmer of hope in one of the calls that allowed me to hold on just one more night. If my screams were not heard, I could always finish the job. So I held on. The next day, my cries were heard, but I wasn't full ready to accept the help that was being offered. So a bandage was put on my bleeding heart, and I was sent back into the world where I would wait for the dam to break once more. They sent me back into the world with all the king's horses and all the king's men to watch over me, to give me aid and support. That wasn't enough. The dam did break months later, and God only knows why I'm here to tell my story. The pain was so overwhelming and I so weak. I couldn't fight any longer. I just wanted it to be over. I wanted the pain to stop, and I wanted to stop hurting the people I still managed to care about. Now today, I'm still on a number of medications. I try to keep myself ignorant of the issues of the day because I fear the anger and rage still may lie within me. So please forgive me if I don't hold up my half of a small talk conversation. My memory is horrific. I can and will forget the names of you that I know, even love. In fact, I was out walking my dog one day, and a neighbor asked me his name. I was so embarrassed when I couldn't tell him. And on another occasion, I didn't recognize someone that I'd known for some time. In fact, I think I even welcomed her to our little church instead of the fond greeting of a close friend. I'm sorry for that, by the way. But my life in general has been on an upswing since I asked the Lord to forgive me and drive the hate out of my life. I wrote the poem Forgiveness the day He answered my prayers. Now I feel a rejuvenated love for my neighbor and myself as well. I have the full support of my family and the friendship of many of you, and I grow stronger every day. The other two writings you have are one I wrote about depression, the other poem written out of brokenness. I hope they touch someone that may need to hear the message. I have come to peace with God, thanks to God, my family, Ben, this church, and all of you. I don't know what's next for me, although I feel that God is knocking on my heart to do something about suicide awareness and prevention. Time will tell. Until the next chapter is written, that's my story. Thank you for your time.